The American inventory has planes that cannot be caught on radar, ships that it's the size of a city. And now with AI and cyber realm put into this, the greatest advantage that the US military has is beyond the imagination of most people. And it's really scary if you think about it. AI will give us logical answers. That might not be the right thing to do. We put in a lot of effort to clear a minefield. Communists would rush a minefield because statistics say that less casualties occur when you rush a minefield. The numbers say that. Should you do that? My name is In-Bum Chun. I'm a retired Korean 3-star. I served in the Korean military for 38 years. I was given the honor of commanding the Korean Special Forces. I was deployed to Iraq, stayed there for 7 months. I was in charge of the first free and fair elections in Iraq in 58 years. I've been retired about 8 years now. I continue my efforts to improve and maintain the relations between the United States and Korea, especially on the military side. I also support Korean animal welfare and rights. My mother was the first woman diplomat for the Republic of Korea. Well, she was sent to New York City to the United Nations. She served there for 3 years. I accompanied her there. That's where I got the English. My mother is a very patriotic person. Maybe because of that influence, I wanted to devote my life to protecting the Korean people and decided to become a soldier. So I think most people would think that when you are asked a question like that, the American inventory has satellites that can see objects that no one else can see. The United States has missiles that have nuclear warheads, planes that cannot be caught on radar, tanks that can shoot far, attack helicopters that can fight and shoot at night, ships that are so big that it's the size of a city. All these weapon systems come to mind. But to me, I think the greatest advantage that the US military has is the ability to integrate all of this. So it's not just one weapon system. It's the ability to have these capabilities, and each capability has a unique use. And when a unique use comes together, it creates a synergy, a multiplication. And now with AI and cyber realm put into this, possibilities of this power is greater than anybody that imagined. And so the United States military has the ability to integrate all of this. That is probably something that most people don't realize, the power of that integration.
How was this integration possible, particularly in the US?
Good question. It's because of communications, data being exchanged. But there's so much data. You need to be able to filter so that the human mind can understand. And now with AI, that filtering becomes more capable. And the possibilities of what we can create with such capability is beyond the imagination of most people. And it's really scary if you think about it. What amplifies the US military and what is most important in the US military is the people. And the US military knows that. The Korean military doesn't know that. The United States, the American people recognize the fact, despite everything that they have, and I've made the list, nuclear weapons, submarines, carriers, stealth aircraft, despite everything that they have, they know that it would be nothing, even the AI would be nothing without good people. And the United States is able to integrate all of this because they have capable people and a robust communications network. We call it C4I, Command, Control, Communications. This is a great tool, and it's a fighting tool. Most militaries, unfortunately, don't think that C4I, the ability to talk to each other, the ability to see the battlefield, is not a weapon, but it is the most lethal weapon in the battlefield. The Korean military still does not think that this is a lethal weapon. And this is one of the things that I am trying to advocate for. So the United States, we all know that the American soldier is paid well. There's a lot of incentives. Their families are taken care of, and so forth. But the real ingredient to being able to have good people stay in the military is respect. So the United States, I think people don't realize how much respect and patriotism is associated with the U.S. military. So although the United States seems like a country that is falling apart, there are elements there that are so solid that it would be very detrimental to underestimate this strength. I think anybody who wants to challenge the United States should go to a U.S. baseball game and see how the crowd reacts to various teams, especially the service school games, and see what kind of patriotism and camaraderie is exhibited. You can feel the patriotism of the people, the respect of the people is what really makes good people want to stay in the military. The U.S. Military system tries to maintain that kind of quality and reputation of its forces. So most Western countries in Europe are to a degree similar in that they know that people are the most important. For Korea, for whatever reason, we do not respect our military as it should be. The fault lies at least half with the Korean military itself. The officers and NCOs did not respect the soldiers, the conscripts, and so now the conscripts do not respect the military. Now that's not the whole truth, but the South Korean military could really do better. In contrast, in North Korea, they have a strong dictatorship which is sustained by a military. And so the respect that their military has is different from ours. Our respect is one of gratitude and true respect. But in North Korea, the respect of their military is based on fear and discipline. The old South Korean military, we can't do that anymore. We should not do that anymore. What we need to do is gain true respect. In order to gain respect, you need to put in a lot of effort. You need to respect your soldiers as well. We have a lot of water under the bridge, and we have a lot of challenges overcoming that. We're doing that right now, but there's still societal, cultural, historical challenges that we must overcome, and it will only overcome if we recognize the fact that we have a problem. And so I believe that we're getting better, but I think we need to get better sooner than later. I think the Chinese military is never going to be able to be as capable as the United States, but the Chinese military, there's a lot of them. They also have different standards of morality. For instance, they can use AI in a different spectrum than the United States or the free world. One of the limitations of the free world is self-imposed. We do not use our lethal capability to kill women and children. In fact, we avoid killing women and children at the cost of our own soldiers. I don't think the Korean public, the South Korean public, realizes that that's the new standard that the international community expects of us. In other words, again, international community expects the free world to avoid causing civilian casualties at the price of our own soldiers. Now, we still have the option of not choosing that, but it'll be at a price. And so we have not been in a situation where we had to make choices like this, but it's going to come soon. All the accusations about atrocities against civilians committed during the Vietnam War that is coming to light now, some of them might be true, some of them might be exaggerated. We must understand that there is a moral responsibility for democracies like Korea to uphold. And this is a new challenge that we must face. Artificial intelligence will give us information that will produce results that will win a fight, a battle, and even a war. But sometimes in war, there are things that you must not do, even if it means you're not going to win. Using weapons of mass destruction, for instance, where you're going to be able to destroy your enemy, but at the same time, you're going to kill a lot of innocent civilians. So artificial intelligence will give us a lot of information, but the final choice has to be made by a human being. And the human being must be able to think not only logically, but with human sentiment. And human sentiment is something that is unreliable, but must be the deciding factor. That's what I believe. AI will give us logical answers, logical courses of action, but sometimes that might not be the right thing to do. And in the free world, I'm hoping that we will see that and we will choose the right thing to do. I don't see that happening dictatorial or authoritarian system. They will think, if this is going to win, we're going to do that. A good example is minefields in a war. We put in a lot of effort to clear a minefield. The communists would rush a minefield because statistics say that it's actually less casualties occur when you rush a minefield than trying to spend the time and effort to breach a minefield. The numbers say that, but should you do that? So if the AI comes up with historical numbers saying, well, if there's a minefield and if you commit 1,000 people to just run over it and at least 750 will make it, well, if you're trying to breach it during the breaching phase, 300 people will be killed. The logical answer is just send people across rather than try to dig out all the landmines. So that kind of logical thinking might not be the right course of action. So if you look at warfare, it started with the stick and the rock. And now we have AI and drones. But who's controlling these drones? It's human beings. So somewhere along the line, we have come to the conclusion that drones and robots and AI will create a situation where we will need less people. I don't agree with that. I think we might need less combat people in the front grounds, in the traditional concept where he's going to be wearing a armored plate and with a rifle and all that. But somebody's got to control the drone. Somebody has to make the drone. Somebody has to repair the drone. Somebody has to arm the drone. Somebody has to analyze the data from the drone. So I don't think it's going to reduce the role of the human being. So the danger is people are going to think, well, we're going to have AIs and drones and robots, and we don't need people. I don't agree with that. We're going to need different kinds of people. If people start asking AI, give me 3 recommendations, and give me the best recommendation, we're going to need really good people who will be able to say, nope, I'm not going to accept your recommendation. I'm going to use option 3, or even an option that the computer did not propose. That's going to take a lot of courage. If we rely on AI to make our decisions, that's very dangerous. Just imagine this. People are going to go into positions, and these people who basically don't want to take responsibility, who are afraid to take responsibility, if they go into positions where they must make critical decisions and they rely on a computer to make their decisions for them, it would be catastrophic. There is something that we should never forget as human beings, that we are human beings. No matter how artificial intelligence is better at coming up with a logical conclusion or logical decisions, we ourselves must make the final decision. And as such, those people who must make that decision must have a quality such as integrity, honesty, a real soul, because that's something that we humans are the only ones that can have that. And since we are human beings, we need to have people like that. So AI, I think, will require that human beings become more human. 1 + 1 is 2. Life is not like that, is it? So that's what I think that AI will bring to our lives as well as to the battlefield. And in the battlefield, you must, in an environment where AI will make all the logical decisions, you need to have a human being, sometimes illogical. The human being must have the ability to say, No. He or she must have the moral courage to do what he or she thinks is the right thing and take responsibility. To think that we're going to be able to put robots and they can replace human beings is a very dangerous concept. The Russians are losing 1,000 to 1,500 people a day. The Ukrainians are losing a lot of people as well. Again, even if you send in robots, it will not culminate a conflict. Resources is great, but the goal is to break the will of your opponent. And your opponent, his or her will not be broken just because they've lost 1,000 robots. It's going to have to really hurt them. And so I believe that robotics or machines will be a good tool, but the goal still will be to break the will of your opponent. What we need to learn from the US military, number one, is respect. Respect for each other, respect for their soldiers, and the respect that the soldiers have for their officers and non-commissioned officers. That's what we really need to learn. Everything else can come later. If there's a second to that, is how much effort is put into training and to team building. The Korean military could do a lot more to train its soldiers and to build camaraderie. Right now, talk about going to a professional military where we get rid of the conscript system is very dangerous. We need to maintain a strong civil defense posture. And the first step to doing that is to have a universal service. And I would say that we need to expand that to women in Korea. So the United States forces in Korea have provided stability for the Northeast Asia region and especially to the Republic of Korea for the past 75 years. The assistance from the United States, especially the deterrence effect, as long as we had American troops on the Korean Peninsula, the true value is that we knew that the North Koreans would never attack. And because of this knowledge, we were able to build and invest in our economy, which again led to political and democratic developments in our society. So we should be very proud of that, and we should also be very grateful for the American soldiers who were stationed here. One of the side effects was that I think the Korean military, not to mention Korean society, especially our politicians, thought that as long as we have American soldiers on the Korean Peninsula and there would be no risk of war, why should we take seriously the defense of our own nation? And this reliance mentality, although a lot of people will not admit to it, exists. And I think this is very dangerous. And I think we are now in an era where this has to change. So what the United States expects of Korea in the future is take more responsibility for your own defense. Secondly, participate in protecting freedom and democracy, not only in the Republic of Korea, but in other parts of the Indo-Pacific. And to us Koreans, if our neighbors are threatened by an authoritarian, dictatorial entity, we just can't be bystanders. Because if our neighbor becomes threatened, it's just logical that it'll be our turn. So let's just say that, Taiwan is threatened. It's not a Taiwanese problem. It's our problem. It would just make sense that we need to be prepared for such contingencies as well. So in the future, I believe that the Korean military needs to take more responsibility for their own defense, number one, and be prepared to commit itself to stability and freedom of the region, not just the Republic of Korea, because it is in our best interests. Our biggest problem is that it's going to make North Korea military more capable. They're going to get first-hand experience at modern warfare. They're going to get technology. They will have enhanced relations with the Russian military. And although conclusion of the fight is hopefully near, Even after that, the Russian-North Korean relationship is likely to continue. And with all better relations between North Korea and Russia, it's going to be challenging for us. It seems the United States is looking at better relations with Russia. Hopefully that will influence the relations between Russia and North Korea. In other words, better relations with Russia and the United States might actually affect the Russian-North Korean relations because the Russians might not need friends like North Korea. So maybe that is something that we can hope for. But right now, this relationship with the Russians and the North Koreans overall is bad news for us. Although China and Taiwan is a potential firecracker in this region, I don't see the Chinese are prepared to use military force against Taiwan unless the Taiwanese declare independence or something else. An invasion of Taiwan by the Chinese is probably going to be the last step, but a quarantine, a blockade is always possible. A quarantine or a blockade of Taiwan, we can't allow that to happen. We Koreans would be affected as well. The free world cannot allow that to happen. And there would be a possibility of great tension, which could spill over or morph into the Korean Peninsula. So we need to be very vigilant and we need to be very prepared for this kind of contingency. But right now, nobody wants to admit that such a possibility exists. Everybody wants to avoid this kind of situation. I want to avoid this kind of situation. But I'm just saying that we need to be prepared for the worst case. And the war in Ukraine, how it culminates, will greatly affect the thinking of nations like Russia and China. China might see this as an opportunity or some lessons that they think is favorable to them. But I think what they should realize is starting a war and underestimating your opponent is very dangerous. It might not be that easy for the Chinese to take on the Taiwanese. And so hopefully they will think twice about using military force. But it's not just about Taiwan. South China Sea, that area, there's a lot of clashes that are going on. So full-scale war is unlikely, but regional clashes, military confrontation is going on right now. So when a clash occurs, that expanding into a larger conflict is always possible. And when things like that happen, it's going to disturb our lives. And the attitude that we show, the response that we show, needs to be very clear because it's going to send a message to our adversaries and to our friends. I think the dimensions that we're talking about, cyber, space, lasers, hypersonic, a lot of that is being matched by the Chinese. But it's not just about the weapon, but how it's going to be used and what kind of integration that will come. And ability of the United States to integrate these capabilities and to use them will probably be a big surprise to China.